Alright guys, I am officially back from my cruise, and you already know what we are here to do. We are here to do our Sunday scan, get prepared for the week ahead, and just make sure that no matter what, we are prepared for what may occur. Now, with that being said, I charted a couple of these names already. We might go through a couple of them that I have not charted, just in case like any of them pop up, any names in particular. But while I was on my cruise, I did have my Bloomberg open, so I was well in tuned with the market. I just didn't place any trades. I was completely sidelined, did not take a single trade, did not do anything, just kind of glanced in and looked over market structures and things like that during my vacation. But we are back, so let's get straight into it. The first thing I want to go ahead and discuss is it seems like there seems to be a little bit of a concern in the markets, in my opinion. AVGO had earnings, I believe, and it just flopped really badly here. Like, I think this company had lost $200 billion in one day. So, that's a lot of capital that this company had lost off of its earnings, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the earnings that made this crash out and just flush out. So with that being said, when I look at the overall market, the SPY, very double toppy. Like, look, here, very double toppy. It looks a bit concerning. I'm a little bit concerned that I just, it feels like, I don't know if you guys remember, there's charts that you can possibly look up. I'm not going to bring it up now, because I would have to go ahead and dive into like Google and try to search some Twitter accounts for the image. But the way that this pattern on the daily is kind of playing out is very similar to when Trump's first term during 2018, 2019-ish. Like, it kind of had that same pattern where it looked like we were breaking out of all-time highs here. And then we flushed and we kind of actually made like deep lows before we rebounded nicely the rest of his presidential first term run. And it looks very reminiscent of that. What I want to make sure I'm paying attention to is not only the pattern, because listen, patterns like to repeat over and over again historically in the market. They just do. So I have that in the back of my mind, and I'm not saying that, listen, this is going to be a 100% thing that's going to work. It's just something that I want to make sure that I understand and I have my eyes on, because if we wake up tomorrow with futures gap down 200 points or something like that, and we're under previous day lows, that obviously means that the SPY is going to be doing the same thing, and we might be gapping down. And I want to be prepared for that. I also want to be prepared in the event that maybe the market might be stagnant or maybe catch a little bit of a bid. Either way, I want to prepare for everything, which means that I'm not going to be biased, but the AVGO, it's a bit of a concern for me, because when you have the strongest sector, aka semiconductors and AI, it becomes a little bit of an issue, because this directly leaks straight into NVDA, which you can see it's, double top up here, right? You see that double top on the daily, and now it's rolling over, kind of bear flaggy, right? So like if you want to draw lines here on NVIDIA and you want to get real sexy with it, I mean, look at this on the daily chart. It looks very bear flaggy. We're losing some of the crucial SMAs, the 100, the 50, the 20, the 10. The only one where we're not under is the 200 daily moving average, which gives us a lot of room down. This gives a lot of room down to get back and tap into that 200 daily moving average. And even at that, if we are repeating the pattern of the 2018 chart. Listen, I expect you guys to do your own due diligence. I'm not going to sit here and do all the homework for you and pull up the image and do this, that, and the other. You guys have to do that on your own time. I know what the chart looks like, but if you pull up the 2018 chart of the overall market, so the SPY, it's very reminiscent. We're getting a very similar chart pattern that we've seen before. And can this be the start of a pretty steep retracement? Who knows, right? I'm not gonna bet my money you know, going into tomorrow off of a vacation, you know, getting into 30 option contracts, 50, 100 option contracts, you know, thinking semiconductors are going to fall off the face of the earth. But I just want you guys to really, really understand that there seems to be a little bit of a worry right now. And it seems to have been like that for quite some time, which is why you're seeing some stagnant names in terms of the semiconductor. And look at AMD, man. I'll just show you another semiconductor that's doing the same. Look at AMD. It's kind of making that same pattern as NVIDIA. You can kind of draw this bear flaggish, you know, move where it's sort of like this, right? Like, I know you could draw any form of a trend line, but you kind of can see the crack starting to show now that it's rejecting this line here. You know, just in case you are one of those people who like to do... Oh, my God. Why did I make that so bright? Let me go to more. If you are one of those people who don't like drawing trend lines and like to draw kind of those, you know, the horizontal lines, like how I actually do, you know, look at this. On the 4 hour or the 1 hour, look at the rejections coming in. You know, look at the 4 hour. Look at the rejections coming in. I mean, we lost this high, this low, this low, this low, this low, flushed out, reclaimed, flush. You know, this is a problem here, and you're noticing it on these semiconductors. You know, so just be aware that there seems to be something going on in this sector that is a shift. And if we start seeing the AI, the semiconductor sector shift, I want you guys to really think about how strong these sectors have been. And now that they're showing weakness again, do you honestly think that if these sectors rotate, do you honestly think that the SPY and the NQ, QQQ, so on and so forth, do you think it's going to hold? I highly doubt it. This is such a strong sector and such a pivotal and important sector in the market that if it really starts to lose its bid, the whole market can theoretically start to rotate down. And I'm talking about everything. I mean, of course, there's going to be like outliers, and you know, like you might see like some financials doing relatively well. Like, let's see what BAC's doing. I've been gone for a week, so let's see. So BAC's doing all right? Just hit all-time highs. Let's see Wells Fargo. You know, all-time highs practically. Let's see JPM. Close to all-time highs. Goldman Sachs. Basically all-time highs, you know, got that flush out. Like, if we start seeing the financial sector rotate with the semiconductor sector, I think it could be all she wrote for the market. I'm going to be completely honest. And I'm not trying to be bearish, guys. I have no bias. I'm not going into tomorrow on a Monday, back from a vacation, slamming into anything short. I'm not. I'm going to let the price action come to me and come into a pattern that I like. You know, I'm looking at things like Apple, and this to me just screams not to touch, right? Like, look at this. What is this? This is just barcode action for the whole day on Friday. And it's very clear that when you pull up like a 4 hour, it's very clear where you want to kind of be short if you're going to be short, right? It's somewhere up here in this vicinity. So I'm not touching Apple. Another name that's very interesting to look at is Microsoft, because Microsoft seems to be rolling over pretty aggressively after it double topped, right? I think this was off of its earnings move, kind of dip, earnings move again, double top, and it's fading. Now it's getting close to that 200 SMA, and I'm going to be completely honest, guys. When a name is starting to tap the 200 moving average repeatedly, at some point, in my opinion, it's going to let it go. You know, I don't want to keep trying to long this name at the 200, because the time that it lets it go, it might let it go aggressively. And I'm not trying to be singing no goddamn Elsa shit. So, in my opinion, very cautious on Microsoft as well. Like, this name has some ways to rotate down. And if you are somebody who knows about my inefficiency strategy, I just want to share something with you guys, because it is very, very interesting. Let me go ahead and pull up the daily. Let me can I customize? No. That's not what I want to do. I want to time frame. I want to go to the month. Let's do 15 years, month. Look at this gap on the monthly. This is just, guys, I'm not saying this gap fills, but there's a high chance that this gap is going to fill. If you go ahead and you look at Microsoft, its monthly has never gapped up like this. and not retraced. Like, realistically, there's a chance where this can absolutely come down to the 400s and fill this monthly gap. Like, that is possible. Now, I'm not going to say that, oh my God, this is going to work 100% of the time, you know, yada, yada. I don't know. But what I know is that if I was someone who's shorting, right, and I was swing shorting, I could put my stop up here and my target, let's say you got short, obviously, the risk reward doesn't make sense for anything swing related if you're going to use this as a stop and this as a reward. That's like a 1-on-1. I'm not trading 1-on-1s. But if you were to bring down your stops or whatever and maybe use 500 as a stop, you know, who's to say we don't get to 400 to fill this gap? Who's to say that doesn't happen? You know, these are things that you got to be paying attention to, because we're seeing some sort of shifts, guys, and it's a bit weird. You know, Amazon looking like it wants to give way too. You know, it's losing all of its SMAs. The action on Friday was very kind of bloody. You know, you don't want to see. This is very double toppy, guys, on the SPY. Like, it's just screaming double top, and you know, who's to say we don't start rotating a little bit? You know, we've been on an absolute tear since basically, you know, the liberation tariffs after we capitulated and we made the deal with China and so on and so forth. Like, we've been on a steady, you know, up grind. Who's to say we don't get some rotation down? I don't want to be overly bearish, but I want to be prepared. And you're going to hear me say that throughout this whole video. Also want to point out something like MU. MU has been an excellent trader for me. I've been killing MU almost every single time I trade it. You know, this double toppy as well. You guys can see, you know, this wick here. It did a little bit of a, you know, an exuberant move, a little bit of a, okay, let's get some stops, you know. Let's get these stops in and then fail. And you're seeing that now. You're seeing a little bit of an aggressive extra push, stop people out because it reached all-time highs, to then just rotate back down. You know, that's off of the AVGO. I'm assuming it's off of the AVGO earnings, because if AVGO is gonna, you know, tank out like that, yet again, the sector can do the same. So MU is gonna be obviously on my watch. I'm a huge, you know, advocate of trading this name. I've done very, very well. I've made a lot of money trading MU, to be completely honest, throughout the whole year. And then we look at something like PLTR, kind of same concept. You know, we have like this head and shoulders S, right? The left shoulder, the head, right shoulder here is getting very interesting how these names are kind of setting up. So what I want to be cautious of is I want to be cautious of shorting anything too soon, but I want to be well prepared for if this thing actually does a head and shoulders, we can easily see this let go and go to the 200 daily moving average, you know, in the long term. Now, will I swing this? More than likely not, but this can set up for an excellent day trade opportunity, and that's what I want to be kind of focusing on. So, you know, what other names do we have? We went over Amazon. Let's go over Google. Google's something that we should go over as well. You know, when we're looking at Google, it's very clear on this daily chart that this, you know, 320s to 325 area is a area of concern. You know, Warren Buffett purchased this name, and ever since his purchase, you know, has been leaked, obviously this name's been doing very, very well. And are we seeing a little bit of a rotate? You know, these are questions that you have to ask. You know, is it time to kind of sell a little bit of these tech names and see if they start rotating back down? You know, who knows? But this is very interesting. If we start getting pops versus 320 that start to fail to follow through, or even if we start to lose these lows here, which is like the 305, you know, ask area, who's to say we don't tap into this 50 daily moving average that we got kind of extended from? You know, that's also a possibility here. What else do we have? You know, I didn't check QQQ, so let's check QQQ. I'm sure QQQ is almost double toppy as well. Yeah. Off of that AVGO. Let's see UNH. Let's see how healthcare is doing. UNH seems to have caught a little bit of a bid. You know, I think that helps with the Dow. So let's see what the Dow's doing. Let's go YM. YM. How's the YM performing? YM seems to be outperforming because there's a lot of financials and health sectors in this, you know, sector in this name, right? These are like the banks. UNH is in it. I think Humana. You know, several names in this ETF or this future. So, you know, pay attention to YM if it is showing some relative strength. And if it is showing relative strength, obviously you know what to look at. If the YM is showing strength, you want to be looking at the financials. You want to be looking at the healthcare sector. You want to be looking at names that are within the YM. So, you know, just keep that in the back of your mind, guys, when you are looking at the YM and the difference between the ES and QQQ. I always like to say that SPY and ES is a mixture of the YM and QQQ combined, while the YM is like the financials, healthcare, and then, you know, QQQ and NQ is the tech side of things. And I know I'm moving a little bit quick, but let's check ASML out. ASML, obviously, you know, they hold a monopoly in the semiconductor sector with their tech. And look at this on the weekly. Look at this, guys. Very interesting. Another double top. You know, who's to say? Another double top-esque move. I'm just saying, it's very, very interesting. And then when you're looking at that, I mean, you could look at like what is it? SanDisk? Is it SanDisk? Yeah. So you want to be looking at SanDisk as well, like memory names. You know, these have been on a tear. And look, now they're starting to get kind of weak. You're seeing it, you know, kind of lose its balance here. Really something to look at, guys. You know, I'm just prepping you guys for some names that I'm gonna be paying attention to. I have no bias. It's gonna be a Monday. I don't want to strike too early. I don't want to strike too fast. I want to make sure that these come into my wheelhouse. So, for instance, I'll let you guys know my game plan right now. If MU starts to kind of fail, you know, this red area from 246, 250, I'll be prepared for that. If we even get a surge up here and it fails to follow through, I'll be prepared for that. Google, I already told my pricing. It'll be at 320 to 325 I'll be staring at. Apple is a clear no-go. NVIDIA, if it starts to really break down, pops start to fade these levels here, I like that for a possible fade. AMD, same situation. You know, if this starts to really let go, I'll be willing to join that short. But if this wants to start popping and then failing to follow through towards these levels here, which is 224 to 227, I'll be there for the possible shorts if we can get back up there. What else is there? I know I went over ASML, you know, Google, Amazon. To me, not really. You know, it's almost like Apple. I don't want to touch it, but if I get an intraday setup, I might want to be there for it. Maybe, you know, towards this 100 daily moving average, maybe towards this 20 daily moving average. You know, if this starts to fail to follow through, you know, at those areas, I want to be short there. Let's see Meta. Meta, you know, look at Meta here, failing key levels. So same thing, you know, until this thing could get over 680s, if these pops start failing to follow through and we get some really, really interesting intraday setups, Meta could be something on watch for me as well. But everything for me seems to be like there's some sort of rotation going on in this market, and we can be seeing maybe a shift in the trend. And guys, I don't want to be overly bearish, but what I want to say is I don't want to just straight up long something. And I also don't just want to go into the market wanting to short. I need these names to set up properly. You know, if Monday they want to chop around and not set up, then they don't want to set up. It is what it is. I might not trade. But if these names set up properly, I absolutely want to be there, and I want to be able to attack. What other name am I looking at? I did Microsoft, Palantir, MU, Tesla. Tesla as well. This is something I want to take a look at. Look at on the daily how it looks like it's getting a little bit heavy up here on the 52-week highs. You know, we're really close to all-time highs, I believe. Let me pull up a monthly. Maybe it'll show better. Let me do a 15 years. Yeah, so look at this. I mean, having some issues here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to rush it, but there's clearly something going on here on Tesla. So I would not be surprised if this is going to be a little bit of an issue for Tesla. I don't want to be overly bearish yet again, but just be cautious up here at these levels if you are someone who's longing. You know, you got some people who are long from really good averages. You should be taking off a portion of your position. I don't know if you want to really be up here with a full-size position if you have a good average. You want to start taking some profits up here just in case that rotation does really start happening here. Anyways, I've been rambling for 20 minutes. I hope that this has kind of prepared you guys. My game plan, honestly, no bias on any of these names. If these start to pop into areas that I like, I want to short them. And if they start to want to, you know, if I start seeing intraday long opportunities, I'll long, but I'm going to long tentatively. You know, I'm not going to force any longs just in case we're seeing a little bit of a shift in momentum. Because let's be clear about something really quick, guys. If you think that the QQQ does not need a little bit of a break, you're out of your mind. Look how much we are up on the year. I want you guys to see this really quick. We are up on the year from the highs. We have 58% on the year. 58%. Let's go to SPY from its lows. SPY from its lows. 40. What is that? Like 43-ish. Let's just say 45% on the year. That's a lot of movement. You know, to move 45% from the lows, that is a lot of movement we are seeing on these names, guys. So be prepared, be cautious, do not rush into anything. More than likely, I am going to upload another video tomorrow and maybe throughout this whole week, because if we start seeing that change of character in the market, I want to make sure that I'm commentating all through this. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that I'm walking through the process and how I'm going about the overall market conditions currently. You know, so maybe expect a couple of videos here throughout the week based on what we see price action wise. I don't want to rush anything, and I also don't want to kind of be a little bit too patient. You got to find that sweet spot on where you want to be, especially starting a new week, especially because I am coming back from a vacation. I don't want to press on the gas too hard, and I also don't want to miss great opportunities, because if you guys do not know, I am a much better short side trader than I am actually longing. So if the short starts showing, I need to be well prepared, and I need to be, you know, I need to be on. So that is what I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like. If you guys have any comments or anything, please feel free to leave a comment. I will more than likely be happy to reply. And yeah, so that's my thoughts. Thank you guys for your time. Hope this helped you get prepared. And that's all I have for you guys. Later.